Hey everyone, welcome back with a new lecture with ISO 9001 2015 edition, and still we are in design and development. Now design and development inputs. In the previous lecture I have explained planning. Each process inside the organization shall start with planning, and also each project shall be planned well. What are the inputs required for the product or service to be designed and developed? The organization shall determine the requirements essential for the product or service to be designed and developed, and shall consider the following points: functional and performance requirement. What are the functional and performance requirement? The outputs, as I said before in the previous lecture, the outputs shall meet the requirement of the customer, shall meet the inputs. So you shall determine all inputs very well to have at the end outputs which meet the inputs or the requirement of the customer. So this is very important. The performance of the product that will be designed or that will be developed shall be included, also considered in your inputs at the beginning. You shall define all requirements for this product or service very well, and what you need from this product. Then at the end you will have the output which is performing well as you define in the inputs. As example for that, the customer asks you to produce a pen, and you need this pen with some specification, and the ink used also should be with some specification and should be safe for users. So all specification should be same at the end. So if you define all of these inputs very well, at the end you will have the pen which is fit for his requirement. And also if you have different product or service which is very big or very difficult to be produced, but you define all of these inputs or all of his requirements, and you have defined also the specifications required, at the end that product will be performing well. So functional and performance requirement. And also the organization shall consider informations provided from similar design and development activities. If you produce the similar design or similar product or service before, you shall go back to that product, and from your experience about this product, you can improve the quality of this product. Even sometimes the customer doesn't know everything about his product and cannot give you all requirements relating to this product, but you can add more requirements for the product, or you add more inputs relating to this product or service based on your experience. Statutory and regulatory requirements also shall be considered in your inputs. Sometimes the customer needs something which is against the law or against the regulation of government or your company. In this case, you shall tell him that and try to convince him that this is against the regulation, and that will be also removed from the inputs of his requirements. And also standards or codes of practice that the organization has committed to implement. They will agree with the customer that there is a regulation or a standard will be followed to provide him with the product or service. So code of practice written guideline issued by a professional association. And also consequences of failure due to the nature of product or service. Sometimes that will affect human health or human life. If the company will produce medicine that will be very important to the human health and it didn't achieve the required performance, that's very danger for the human health. And also if the company will produce cars or aeroplanes, that will be very dangerous. If didn't achieve the required performance, can lead to accidents. So it's very important to consider this point. What are the consequences of failure? And that also shall be recorded in the risk register form. Risk-based approach here is very important to be activated. Risk register form, you will record the related to the nature of product or service provided to the customer, there is a probability, low risk or moderate risk or high risk, and what you will do to eliminate this risk or reduce this risk, and that will be recorded in the inputs also for this product or service. So finally, when the organization collects requirement from the customer or mandated by the government or industry regulations, if there is any requirement from the customer against the law, that shall be removed from the requirements, from the inputs, and also from previous similar design. If you have experience about this product, you shall go back to this product that you did before and try to add some inputs to improve the quality of the product. And also, if there is any requirement that the customer doesn't know or doesn't have experience to add, and you know related to the safety of the product or service, you shall add to these requirements. So inputs shall be adequate, completed, and unambiguous, should be clear. There should be no conflict between the customer requirement and law regulations or regulatory requirements, and also that shall be resolved before starting or before signing the contract with the customer or before starting the project. So conflicting inputs shall be resolved before starting the project, and you shall retain documented information for the whole process. Documented information are very important for traceability. So you can keep product or service requirement in a record, specific record for product or service requirement from the customer, and he will add all of his requirements in this record. And you can make survey also for users. As I said, you can ask users about the product before starting the project to have some idea about requirement from the users itself. And contract is very important, shall be there between the customer and the company. Procedure also for purchasing supplies are very important, and any form relating to purchasing shall be added. After planning and adding all inputs relating to this product or service which are fit for this product or service based on the customer requirement, regulatory requirement, or industry regulation, you need to have some controls, review, verification, and validation, as I explained before, to ensure that the product is valid to be used or the service is done as per the requirements. So the organization need to apply controls to the design and development process to ensure that, first point, results to be achieved are defined. You need to establish objectives. These objectives relating to this project, and you need to achieve these objectives. You need to achieve the required performance as per customer requirement. And reviews. After that, you need to have some reviews to ensure that all activities inside the process done as per required and will meet the requirements are conducted. Reviews are conducted to evaluate the ability of the results to meet the requirement. You need to review for all activities inside this process, all stages during the process. Then verification activities. Verification activities are conducted to ensure that outputs meet the inputs. As I said before, verification, you want to verify after getting the product, you want to verify that outputs, the product that you get or service that you did, meet the inputs requirement. And validation activities to ensure that the resulting product or service meet the requirement for the specified application or intended use. You need at the end to ensure that the product is valid for use, the service done as per required. So you can try to use this product inside your company and check if that was valid or as per requirement of customer or not. And also we shall ensure that necessary actions taken on problems determined during these processes, review, verification, and validation. If you find any problem during these stages, shall be resolved immediately, and this is very important and very urgent. So risk-based approach also is activated for this point. You shall at the beginning, before starting the project, you can make risk plan, risk analysis for all stages, and try to find any risk that may affect that may affect on the product at the end, on the final product or service provided. So you can be able to eliminate most of these risks or reduce most of them, and at the end you will find very few risks and you can deal with them. But during the stages of this process shall be, if you have any problem, action shall be urgent immediately, because it will affect on the final product. And during the whole process of controls, review, verification and validation, you shall keep or retain documented information related to this process. And very important point, there should be acceptance criteria determined by the organization or company relating to this product or service, some acceptance criteria for that product, because at the end you will compare the acceptance criteria with the product. Before giving the product or service to the customer, you shall make comparison between your acceptance criteria for that product. Then if you find is accepted, then at the end you can give it to the users. Then for the product, so there should be acceptance criteria for the product, and the organization shall identify essential characteristic for proper use. If you will produce medicine, as example, you will have some safety issues. That also shall be defined in a specification for the users. Very important. So essential characteristic shall be identified for proper use of this product or service. After planning and defining the design and development inputs for this product or service, then determining some controls, review, verification and validation to ensure that the product will meet the inputs requirements. Then outputs shall meet the inputs requirements. So the organization shall ensure that outputs meet the inputs requirements, customer, regulatory and statutory requirements. Also the outputs must be adequate for subsequent process. The output or the product or service provided must be in a form suitable for verification related to inputs. So the outputs shall meet the inputs requirement, and also must be approved before acceptance through validation process. And also the organization shall ensure that outputs include or reference monitoring and measuring activities as appropriate, and acceptance criteria also shall be defined for the product or service. So the organization needs to define reviews activities during the process to ensure that the process achieved the required performance, and to identify any issues during the whole process and resolve. If there is any issue during the whole process, as I mentioned before, shall be resolved before the final product. And also at the end, through validation, that will be easy. Through validation, there should be some acceptance criteria to accept this product or service before sending to the customer. And also the organization shall specify the characteristics of the product and service that are essential for their intended purpose and their safe and proper provision. The customer add all of his inputs relating to this product or service, but the company, from their experience, they know that there are some other requirements which are essential for their intended purpose and their safe and proper provision. These requirements shall be added also to the inputs to get at the end the product which is safe for users. So even if the specification from the customer were clear, but the company need to add some other requirements for this product or service to be safe for users. So these requirements are essential for their intended purpose and their safe and proper provisions. And also for this process, documented information shall be retained, such as record for product and service conformance to ensure that the product or service meet the inputs requirements, and also record for product or service provision. And I will try to keep some resources with this design and development process. And the last point and very important point in design and development process, changes. If there is any change during the whole process or up to the final stage, shall be recorded, shall be also controlled to ensure that these changes will not affect the conformity of product or service to the customer requirement. The outputs shall meet the inputs requirements from the customer. So you shall notify the customer about any change and take approval from him, acceptance, before starting that change, that type of change. So the organization shall identify, review, and control changes made during or subsequent to the design and development process for the product or service, to ensure that there is no adverse effect on the conformity of product or service to the customer requirement or to the inputs. So any change made during the process to improve the product or service provided or at the final stage shall be recorded, and also these changes shall be controlled to ensure that these changes will not have an adverse effects on the conformity of product or service to the customer requirement. And also documented information shall be retained, such as design and development changes. What are the changes that you will do in this stage, and that will be sent to the customer through notification to the customer about that change, because you will have many changes. At every stage you will send him a specific change, and consequences also that this change will improve the quality of the product or service, and you shall convince him about this to take his approval. And actions taken to prevent adverse impacts. If there is any adverse impact that will happen because of this change, you will take actions to prevent that. And as I said before, that preventive action removed or changed by risk-based approach, so this point can be recorded in risk register form. That was the end of our lecture for today. Thank you, and see you in the next lecture.